billions at the counties without considering their absorption capacities or internal control systems. More of that on page 9. And I will be having the MCAs in studio today. Talk about the counties, their oversight role, legislation, representation, and that aspect of linkage between the electorate and the county government will be looked at today. On the ticker, finally, KRS laps SBM Bank with 737 million penalty. Very key for you to look at the economy page. And big win for exporters as members of parliament clear Kenya-Europe trade deal. For the experts watching this morning, do give us, of course, your understanding of the same. Bamburi suffers 111 power cuts in a year. All right, detrimental or not detrimental, but also policies stalking the wage bill crisis has been covered this morning on the Business Daily. All right, that's pretty much it. Of course, on Matters Live, also with the Priscilla Muhiu highlighted on the front page of the People Daily. Let's encourage you all to, make sure that you've equipped yourself with the right information as you start your day, but as you wrap up the week and usher in your weekend, information is definitely power. Before I introduce my panelists in studio, let's look at the story recap from the news desk, so just you're in the know. Now, despite the Kenya Meteorological Department's warning of heavy downpour that may wreak havoc across the country, Basic Education Principal Secretary Belio Kipsang insists that schools will reopen for the second term next week. This as majority of schools in the country have been converted into evacuation camps, a matter that may affect learning. Our reporter Vera Mora visited some of the schools in Nairobi area and filed this report.
In Nairobi County, where flash floods have severely affected residents, learning in some schools may face delay due to the flood effects.
I know this year we have had the phenomena and we've been blessed with quite some rain. And I know yesterday the president directed a multi-agency team to be able to deal with the challenges that have come with the rains. And these are part of the preparation of ensuring that our children will smoothly fit into their schools next week.
KTN News visited Kariobangi Primary School in Embakasi West, Nairobi, and the aftermath of the flood is evident. With sewage odor permeating the compound, the raw sewage flooding the playground, hindering access to classrooms for the 1,800 pupils expected back in on Monday next week.
Shida tumekuja tukachukua clips, tumepeleka mpaka kwa watu wa Nairobi Water, watu wa Nairobi Water wamekuja wakaflash, hawakutafuta suluhu ya kudumu. Haijaweza kufanyika suluhu ya kudumu. Ndio sababu hii shida isipotatuliwa year go itabakia hivi. This is the state of affairs in Kariobangi South Primary.
Watusaidie kumaliza hii shida ya sewage, wabadilishe line ambayo inapita katikati ya shule, kwa sababu shule inafunguliwa Monday. Na hii shule ikifunguliwa Monday, sioni watoto wetu kama itakuwa environment mzuri, haitakuwa mzuri kwa watoto, na inaweza lete madhara kwa watoto wetu.
Parents and local leaders are pointing an accusing finger at the government for what they have termed negligence, citing recurrent troubles and incomplete projects such as an ECD classroom project by NMS. Outside Nairobi, some schools serve as internal displacement camps or evacuation centers for flood victims, while others require renovation for learning to resume. Back in Nairobi, at the Mathare informal settlement, over 1,000 households have been affected after the raging waters caused extensive damage. The youth there say they pulled more than 10 bodies from the raging waters, while wishers had to intervene.
We are here again to give hope back to those who are affected, because some are traumatized, some also have been depressed with what happened the other day.
Every member of the community, every household imefikiwa na tumejua ni wapi na ni wapi kila mtu ambaye ameathirika na the floods.
Tumeonana na wamama pale, wako kwa baridi, watoto hawana manguo, wazee wanatembea hata miguu tupu kwa hii baridi. So tunahofia ya kuwa hata magonjwa yatakuja kuwapata hapa.
Businesses have also been crippled by the heavy rains. In Kikuyu constituency, in the Godo village, landslides have left a trail of destruction with section of Nairobi-Kisumu railway hanging, halting rail transport.
Hii ni railway line ambayo iliundwa mwaka wa 1897 ndio ilifika hapa Nairobi. Na tangu siku hizo hatujapata kitu kama hichi.
Na shirika la reli jana lilitangaza ya kwamba kwa sababu ya hii mvua ambayo imekuwa ikiendelea wamesimamisha shughuli za hii route.
The Kenya Meteorological Department forecast more than 40 millimeters of rainfall between April 25th and 27th, gradually decreasing by April 28th. And according to Red Cross, over 25,000 families have been displaced, with 24 schools and 17 roads affected. Vera Mora, KTN News, Nairobi.
Meanwhile, President William Ruto has directed the National Youth Service to allocate land for relocating those affected by floods, which have tragically claimed 40 lives. Speaking after chairing a meeting of the multi-agency response team on floods at State House, Nairobi, the head of state said the government has come up with a multi-agency approach to contain the floods. As KTN's Emmanuel Tona reports, the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya leader Raila Odinga has urged the government to declare the floods a national disaster.
The raging floods caused by the heavy downpour currently being witnessed in the country has forced the government to convene a crisis meeting to address the severe floods that until Wednesday claimed 38 lives. President William Ruto has directed the National Youth Service to provide temporary shelter by allocating land for the affected.
I already told the National Youth Service to provide some land for us to relocate some of the people who are in the most dangerous parts of Nairobi. And so I think in that context, what are the flash points and how do we ahead of time deal with those flash points?
All internally displaced persons will be facilitated to find alternative settlement. In extreme cases, the National Youth Service will provide shelter to the most vulnerable members of our society.
The government has at the same time established a national flood emergency multi-agency team and response center to address the flooding situation. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua saying the center will be based at Nyayo House under the Ministry of Interior.
This afternoon, and shall be domiciled at Nyayo House to monitor what is happening across the country and initiate immediate interventions to save lives and property.
The head of state had on Wednesday engaged leaders in counties and regions affected by the ongoing heavy rains and directed the ministries of Interior and ESC, Arid and Semi-Arid Lands and Regional Development, and the National Youth Service to immediately respond to the situation caused by the floods.
I also asked the military, and I'm happy the Minister for Defense is here, to provide some of the capabilities they have to support citizens. I was very happy yesterday they worked with our teams in different parts of the country, including Machakos and other areas.
This as the Azimio leader Raila Odinga urged the government to declare the floods a national disaster and establish an emergency fund to aid victims.
The entire country, as we talk today, is in a situation of a national disaster. Therefore, it is important that the government moves with speed to mobilize all the national resources available, in the country, to deal with this situation.
The situation remains dire across the country as more people remain displaced following the floods.
I believe that as a country, we can do better than crying for help when rains come and crying for help again when rains fail. We can do better.
The weatherman has predicted above average rainfall in the upcoming days, urging Kenyans to remain vigilant. Emmanuel To, KT News, Nairobi.
Just reiterating and echoing, remember to stay vigilant, and the rains will be continuing, according to the weatherman, for the next 3 days, even heavier, but until June. But we continue to update you on the same. Over 300 members of parliament and senators officially relocated to their newly inaugurated offices at the Bua Towers yesterday. President William Ruto officially opened the tower, showcasing its state-of-the-art facilities, including modern offices, a library, gym, and a conference halls. And KTN's David Muthoka provides an inside look at the Bua Tower, situated a short distance from the parliament.
A few meters from Parliament is Bua Tower. The 26-floor tower features 16 floors dedicated to air-conditioned offices for legislators, spanning from the 6th to the 22nd floor.
Good morning, Excellency. My name is Okiro Mtato Koichi.
Additionally, 4 floors from floor number 1 house the reception and 26 conference rooms equipped with modern audio-visual systems, with 4 rooms featuring video conferencing capabilities. The tower boasts of 2 spacious restaurants on the 23rd floor, massage rooms on the 24th floor, and a gym on the 25th floor, with ventilation and solar water heating systems installed on the topmost floor, which is the 26th floor. Underneath are 4 basement parkings that can accommodate up to 350 vehicles at a go. Also, there are 2 5-meter wide, 120-meter long tunnels connecting the tower with the adjacent parliament, which feature 24-hour lighting, Wi-Fi coverage, and proper drainage. The 2 tunnels reportedly cost the taxpayer 150 million shillings and are said to be a favorite for members of parliament for this particular reason.
The voters today are not very happy. They used to get members of parliament on this square on their way to the chamber. Now members of parliament, Your Excellency, will go through the tunnel. And those of you who went to the US Capitol Hill, US Congress, exactly the same tunnel.
The construction of the tower, spanning 14 years, cost the taxpayer a staggering 9.6 billion shillings, up from the initial 5.8 billion shillings set aside to reach completion.
The only parliament in my many travels I can compare with this building is probably the Parliament of Australia in Canberra. It is as good as any other. It is even, I dare say, better facilities than the House of Commons in the UK.
Now that we have all the facilities here, the meeting rooms, committee meeting rooms, I hope I will see a significant drop, Mr. Speaker, in the budget of Parliament.
A majority of members of parliament and senators have since moved in. However, 63 members of parliament and 16 senators did not find space and will be accommodated at a nearby building.
There's no member who was favored to be given an office, apart from the ranking members. Everybody else balloted, and those who have missed out, we are going to renovate Continental House to make sure that we accommodate all members within reach of Parliament.
This centralized location marks a significant shift, as most legislators will be under one roof, having previously been domiciled at various buildings within the Nairobi Central Business District, such as the KICC, Parliament and County Hall.
After a 14-year-long wait, members of Parliament and senators can now cross over to the newly opened Bua Tower, which will from now on be their base of operations. David Muthoka, KTN News at Bua Tower, Nairobi.
Now, away from the legislation, let's take a look at the party politics and the preparations for the United Democratic Alliance Party grassroots elections are complete, with the elections set to take place in 5 counties this Friday, that is today, marking the initial phase of the elections process that will be conducted in phases. The party has warned of any election malpractices, saying those caught will be disqualified and will face dire consequences. KTN's political affairs reporter Daniel Karaoke has more.
At the United Democratic Alliance Party headquarters, it was a beehive of activities as the party finalized preparations for the party grassroots elections expected to take place in 5 counties this Friday. The election has so far attracted over 183,000 aspirants for the various positions. The party says it has already distributed election materials to different regions, noting that it is fully equipped for the primaries.
The first in the country, the first in Africa. There is no party in Africa which have done electronic voting. It will be seamless. It will be free.
The party has issued a stern warning against any form of bribery, emphasizing that such actions will result to disqualification from the elections.
It should be very orderly, as has been in the past, and we must make sure that we deliver what we agreed with the party leader.
The elections will be conducted in Busia, Nairobi, West Pokot, Homa Bay, and Narok counties. Candidates have exuded confidence, saying they were ready for the UDA elections.
For aspirants for various positions to prepare adequately and prepare very well, to register many members who will in turn vote for them. So we expect that the UDA elections are going to be free and fair.
The polling stations are expected to be closed at 3 p.m. and with the results promptly released thereafter. Elections in the other counties will be conducted in June and August. Daniel Kariuki, KTN News.
Indeed, we'll also be following closely the ODM primary or grassroots elections once they commence. But Bumula Member of Parliament, Jack Wamboka, has filed a notice of motion to impeach Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Mithika Linturi, accusing him of incompetence following the manner he has handled the fake fertilizer scandal. Wamboka, who says he has already collected signatures from 110 legislators to support the notice, said the fertilizer scam had eroded public confidence on the CS. Let's take a look.
Rooted in grave allegations of gross misconduct, violation of constitutional provisions, and serious breaches of public trust. The evidence presented before the Assembly paints a distressing picture of negligence, mismanagement, and potential criminal activities within the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock Development under Honorable Linturi's leadership.
Rais ako na maono hata hiyo ya kupatiana fertilizer ili watu waweze kukuza chakula na kuondoa njaa Kenya. Lakini kama wafisadi wataingia katika sekta hiyo na kutuletea fertilizer gushi, hatujui kesho nyingine watafanya nini.
Now, on matters health, the Kenya Medical Pharmacists and Dentists Union is now calling out Cabinet Secretary Moses Kuria. The union says plans by the government to arm-twist doctors against the 2017 collective bargaining agreement is illegal. The doctors insist they will not resume duty until their demands are met. Here's Rebecca Mulire with the details.
The ongoing impasse between the doctors' union and the government is now escalating, with Cabinet Secretary for Public Service, Performance and Delivery Management, Moses Kuria, making controversial remarks on KTN News. The focus of the debate revolved around interns' salaries as outlined in the 2017 to 2021 collective bargaining agreement.
Some people have said the doctors have gone on strike. My honest view, doctors have always been on strike.
What do you mean?
Even in normal times.
What do you mean?
These guys, they come to KNH, work for 2 hours, go to their private clinics, work for the rest, still get paid the same. Like people have been, toiling for 4 hours, for 8 hours, 10 hours. So to me, what they have just done is to, actually accentuate.
However, Kenya Medical Pharmacists and Dentists Union says Kuria was out of order.
The comments by the Cabinet Secretary for Health are just purely political comments. And so any good standing Kenya should treat them with the contempt that they deserve. If it is indeed true that they had given unto us or upon us 18 out of the 19 demands, when we reiterated and told them, then why don't you take the 18 that you gave us, right, and give us this one that is remaining.
Kuria also accused the doctors of being insensitive to other professionals. According to the CS, trainees in other sectors deserve a pay that should be balanced.
I am an engineer, I'm a civil engineer, I'm a mechanical engineer, I'm an actuarial scientist, I'm a pharmacist, I'm all these other cadres there, I'm an agricultural scientist. I am willing to take the 25,000 so that in my CV, I don't have a blank page.
That particular figure wasn't arrived just by the union. It was arrived by the union, by the Salary and Remuneration Commission, by the Public Service Commission, by the Ministry of Health, in a multi-party agreement that saw it fit through job evaluation to put the medical intern at that particular job group. And circulars upon circulars from the SRC have committed to paying the intern at that rate. And please, let me correct you. You know, when you say 206, it seems like intern Dr. Amina will work with a bag of 206 in Kenya shillings in thousands from the bank every month. Not true. This government again takes 47% of it in terms of taxes.
On Kuria's proposal to hire public servants on annual contracts, KMPDU is hoping that success smiles his way.
I will not pay 206,000. I will not pay.
You want to untwist
I
them,
will
you
not
don't want
pay.
them
I
to
will not
untwist
pay.
you.
Call it I'm twisting and twisting. I will not pay 206,000. Take it from me.
That is the only
as
thing.
long as I'm the Minister for Public Service.
Yes.
I will to come itaendelea.
CS Moses Kuria should stop this boyish excitement. Doctors and the rest of the public civil servants are employed in something called an open-ended contract. Permanent is, who is permanent here, like he alluded?
It has been a long and painful wait for thousands of patients who depend on public hospitals as they endure a harrowing wait, with some tragically losing their lives. In the meantime, the two sides stay stuck in a deadlock that is now turning deadly. Rebecca Mulure, KTN News.
Some now terming that a back and forth, a pull and push. I want to start with the dailies this morning, but allow me to acknowledge the presence of very key panelists. If you follow us on social media, you are familiar with them already, but in fact, they always make their way to the media as many times as they can, because civic education, passion to make sure that the country is moving forward is part of their agenda. Let me appreciate, and of course, Nordine Khagai, who is an advocate of the High Court. Thank you for creating time to be here.
Thank you for having me.
I'm looking forward to hearing your remarks on the story on the medics strike, but very shortly, let me also appreciate Kiruga Thuko, who is an MCA in Chinga Ward.
Thank you very much.
How are you today?
Very fine, thank you.
Now, gentlemen, we have the floods going on, and there's so many things it's a full intro to discuss in current affairs. But I want to start with the health matters. 40 days plus for, paralysis in healthcare is a matter of concern. And I want to hear your thoughts, especially in that story, what the CS has spoken about. The medics have now, now taking it a bit, it feels like they're being arm twisted in some type of way.
It's very unfortunate how this because from the get-go, they had issues that the government has failed to fulfill the CBA that they got into. Now, Kenyans need to understand that this CBA is something that was deposited in court. So, essentially, it became a court.
All right.
Now, the government not actually fulfilling the CBA, that means the government is in violation of court orders. That one now means contempt of court, and that is what they are saying. Now, when you look at, for example, the reason why they went to court because A, they used industrial action so that to force the government to fulfill the CBA. Now, in court, they were told two things, that they should go and negotiate or mediate. Now, the problem I have is how the mediation has been done. As I sit here, I am a certified professional mediator. And I say this because I look at it from this angle. Because if you are meant to mediate, you need an impartial third party. So when I saw the mediation process taking place, and I see it's being chaired by Felix Kosgei, we all know where his loyalty aligns. So that in essence was first one of the biggest problems. Now, the CBA that they got into, you see, they first have to fulfill that CBA. And if they're to get into a new CBA with the doctors, it has to be one that they agree. And that is why they were told mediation. So mediation means you bring them to the table and they come up with a solution. the fact that the ministry already has a stand, and it's more or less like, I don't know if you remember the boxer from Tanzania, Manoga Mtukazi, utake usitake unapigwa. So you have to take this, whether you like it or not. That in itself cannot be mediation. So in mediation, each party gives room for what they want. And you get, because at the end of the day, the biggest or the most important thing about mediation is to maintain the relationship. The doctors need the national government needs the doctors at the end of the day. So when I see the discussion has changed from issues of the CBA, we have trivialized it, because you see the CBA talks about employment of 10,000 doctors in a certain quarter or in a certain format. Now, when you look at what the CS said when he was here,
yes,
it's quite unfortunate, because the propaganda now is why are doctors earning this and why different professions are not earning
and you
this.
tell me it's propaganda. You said the propaganda.
It is, because at the end of the day, it is sad, because it's more or less divide and rule. So they're telling Kenyans, if you're not a doctor, if you're not you can't get this much. I am a lawyer, for example, rather than I'm an advocate. This is the time I ask LSK, if KMPDU can channel and come out with grievances for their members, what do you do for me? If you belong to the engineers board, if you're an engineer and you suffer certain issues, why doesn't your board do anything? So those are the questions we need to ask ourselves, because this issue of saying if doctors earn 206, you're earning 45,000, that is a disparity. The question is, which I tend to ask myself, why do we punish competence? If someone has gone to school, they have actually completed their education, why don't you reward that at the end of the day?
I want to come back to that, but before I hear from, of course, Thuku here, let's see what that headline is reading like. Plan to put civil servants on job contracts. And I really want to hear your part on this. The employment status of all civil servants will be converted from permanent and pensionable to contractual terms if plans to be presented to the cabinet by Public Service Cabinet Secretary are adopted. You know, it's a very, very interesting headline. It has caused some sort of uproar, if I would put it that way, especially among the youth. You know, speaking to, let me hear from you still, Hagai, saying, why do we like to punish competence? Do you think this would also be in the same light of punishing competence, or it could be a good thing?
I don't think it's a good thing, because at the end of the day, you see the job security that you have, it's been taken away.
Job security?
Yes, and you see, how will that equate to performance? Because we might have a scenario where performance will go down at the end of the day. We're already grappling with issues of unemployment. So when he talks about contractual, the main reason is why do you want to turn into a contractual? This, I can tell you without fear of doubt, it will find itself in court. And as always, the government of the day always loses me. Because I tend to ask myself, who are these legal advisors who give them opinions that they end up doing things like this? This in itself will be defeated, I can tell you for free.
All right. He's saying if this does go through, it's definitely going to go to the courts. But let me appreciate Kiruga Thuku, the MCA Chinga Ward. What do you have to say about this headline?
I think I should have started with the other issue actually here.
The doctor strike?
Yes, the doctor strike. You know, of course, one sympathizes with the genuine grievances several cadres of civil servants have. But then again, as the government have been saying, we have to be alive to the challenges and the financial status of the country currently. You see, in fact, it's, you know, we can just come here and say, oh, this and that. But let's remember, people are dying in hospitals. When you become, or when you take certain professionals, you know, especially a professional, whereby you are motivated more by care for human beings more than by money, then you allow people to be dying. You know, you even jeopardize what you are fighting for. You can get the money in this, you know, the experience is that you can get money in this world, but that money may end up not making you happy. Then let's say this. Wakili has dwelt greatly on the CBA, and what we need to remember is that this CBA was signed during a campaign period. And I'm saying this because I have relatives who are doctors, I have friends who are doctors.
Okay.
But, you know, the president has consistently said this is the time for fixing this country. In my party, the UDA, I sit in the neck. I'm the chair of the UDA MCA caucus. There are some grievances that we have been discussing even with the government. Our members wanted us even to be having plenary. We went to State House. We talked with the president. The president told MCAs from his own party, this cannot be done. We have to cut costs. So, all of us have to be alive to the current realities in the country. The president have been saying, there comes a time, whatever you are doing, don't aim to get the claps. Face the hard reality. Now, even like I can say the doctors are even making the negotiations very hard, because you see, when people are dying out there, right? Why not negotiate as we treat the people? That's a major question. Because at the end of the day, what the government is saying, and to that extent I support the government fully, fine, the doctors are saying we want this amount of money. But the question is, as a country, can we sustain such a wage bill? And the answer may be no. Now, when we are told that the government or the minister says all workers may be put on contract, I think this is a message so that people understand when we push things to the wall, these are some of the realities we may be forced to adopt. For every action there is a reaction.
Okay.
You see,
So
when
you
we
feel
keep,
this is originating from something, a reaction to something?
of course, because you see, what the government is saying is that because in everything you are doing, it's a matter of several alternatives, and you pick the best alternative. You see, so there may come a time, and the government is saying there may come a time when you push us so hard on these matters, and we don't have such monies, we may just have to go the contractual way. Now it is for Kenyans to discuss. If it is adopted as a best system, everyone goes that way.
Okay, let's hear from other panelists this morning. I want to appreciate Nasra Nada, who is an MCA in the Nairobi County Assembly. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you as well for having me.
Looking at this, what the conversation has been. Number one, we all have relatives who are probably ailing one way or the other. We need doctors back on duty as much as and as soon as possible. Following that story, and the doctors now have reacted to what the CS Moses Kuria spoke on, and calling this arm twisting them. And let's hear your thoughts even on the headline on the screen this morning.
So first, thank you so much for having me and us. I think for me, I'll start with the doctors' conversation. First and foremost, I think it's unfair for us to say the doctors need to be patriotic. Are we patriotic ourselves as government? Recently we heard so many Kenyans complain about the caste situation and appointments. So on one hand, we're saying we can't afford more expenses, more expenditure, more wages, but we're appointing people left, right, and center. Isn't that hypocritical? Secondly, in terms of our expenditure for the current, players in government, there was the issue of excessive travel, foreign and domestic. What are we doing to mitigate that?
The government did speak on that. The president did speak on that. You're not confident that it is happening, implemented, perhaps?
Well, time will tell. But insofar as the information that is out there was still quite a number of excessive trips being taken, both on a foreign and domestic capacity. So it's very hard for us to sell a message if we're not, doing that, from the word go, ourselves. And I have a bit of a challenge saying that we care and are patriotic if we don't start with ourselves. And I think, I know my colleague here mentioned that promises were made during a campaign period. But this is the thing about law. It doesn't care about campaigns. If you committed, it's an obligation. So I don't think then it means we have to bear the burdens of not taking and complying with our word. Because if we are meant to commit to things from a legal perspective, and we are saying that we didn't mean to keep them, then aren't we dealing in bad faith? It's very difficult.
And I'm sorry to interject because it's so important to, go back to what you have said, that this is what the law is and the CBA is binding. But 2017 through to 2024, a number of things happened. COVID happened, Ukraine war happened. That's what they say. Of course, we all followed external stuff or conditions affected the economy of the country. As much as it is binding, the question would be, is there usually the flexibility of sitting down, renegotiating, and looking at how things have changed and matching up, being at par with the factors at hand?
No, I agree with you, and I would just like to say that I think in government and in most industries in the global south, we don't lack the technical expertise, we lack the relational. So I think in terms of the approach, it should have been a humanitarian approach, perhaps with a staggered arrangement. This is what we can afford now. We're not saying that what you want is unreasonable, but we're saying this is what we can afford now as we tighten our own belts, because it becomes something that they can literally see and agree with, that it's a collective issue. And then second, when we do engage with the doctors, we need to appeal to the humanitarian side. We can't force it down their throats when they're seeing, yes, things have changed. And as you rightly pointed out, there was COVID, but they're seeing COVID affected some people, not all. So it's very difficult for us to be having a very staunch conversation, especially now with the flooding. I think we should have appealed to the doctors in a human way rather than forcing obligations. I think the advisors of government threatening doctors to be fired might be the wrong approach, because now with the flooding, guess what's going to happen? There's going to be rampant diseases all over. And who do we need now more than most? Doctors. So if we've shut the door and we're having a national crisis, that might be a very, very bad problem to have.
That might be a very bad problem. And before I hear from you, Nudin, allow me to again hear from another key panelist who is equally here with us, Bernard Riru, MCA Mbiri Ward. We really appreciate your presence. We're here to hear your sentiments.
Thank you.
Especially on this contractual aspect from permanent and pensionable. Yes. A lot of youths don't seem to be very amused by that remark.
Well, thank you so much.
Yes.
If I start with that specific issue, let me first say, for some time now, the government has been talking about stabilizing the economy. And I think when now we are discussing having our civil servants on contract basis, I think it might be a different approach. Because remember, the moment our people are not, or whenever a person feels that they're not stable financially, as far as now doing other businesses, buying a property, buying another item that they might need, that now becomes secondary to the people. If we have our servants, or rather our civil servants on contract basis, their expenditure, they will definitely try to reduce how much they are spending out there. They will probably reduce how much property they are acquiring, how much they're investing into the business. And I think in the long run, this will actually not help our economy stabilize, while for a long time as government, we have really been focusing on stabilizing the economy. And therefore, my request and my challenge to the government and also to the CS would be, have they really thought through how this is likely to affect us as a country going forward? Have they really thought through about our economy? Are they really sure that our economy is willing and ready to accommodate all these changes that will, in the long run, might pull our economy back? I know we have been talking of stabilizing the economy. We have been saying that we're moving in the right direction. Are we sure that this is still in the right direction? As far as the doctors' strike and all the agreements we have made with the doctors is of concern, I think this is a challenge for the politicians, and I am one of them.
Yes.
And I know I'm not really, I might not really be very different from that, but I think we have one bigger challenge. As politicians and as leaders, we don't have, in most cases, we don't have the courage to say no. Sometimes we have doctors, we have other practitioners, we have all those challenges, but when those people come and we're trying to negotiate, when they come to bring those issues, my good friend here has mentioned that these discussions were done during a campaigning period, but I think it is our responsibility, because we are in these positions for a reason, that if we know that we cannot be able to achieve a certain item, it is only fair that we say that we cannot. Now, my request and also my concern is, what other agreement will we have gone into with the same doctors before they go back to work? Because I think to some extent, of course, it is only fair, it is only natural that we make sure that these people go back to work, because our people are suffering. I have friends who are doctors, I have family friends who are ill, I have
my people from Birwood who I know are watching and are also suffering. They have been asking me questions in terms of how they can be able to receive health services. So my question is, because I know that with time, maybe we will be forced to get to a point whereby we will agree with our doctors and we will help them go back to work. Question is, will we again get to an agreement that after another few years we will be having this crisis because we will not have been able to achieve the agreements that we will have gotten into with our doctors? So my request is, let us say no when we cannot and let us say yes when we can. Thank you.
I want to take a very short breather.
Okay.
and I want to appreciate your opening remarks this far. I will still, after the break, look at another paper and then we'll get into the conversation, because essentially, and we're glad that Wakil is here, to help Kenyans understand why we have MCAs in the first place. And if you follow closely, you'll understand that most of my panelists are sitting in the county assembly in the capacity of MCAs. Earlier on, I think a few months ago, they were talking about their pay. Kenyans have been questioning their professionalism, their expertise and knowledge. We've seen some impeachments here and there. So if you are interested in understanding your election pattern, and if we need the county assemblies to start with, the corruption, the rot, we'll be right back with our conversation. But don't stay too far away, because we must conclude on the dailies as well. We'll be right back.